you'll also be learning something which is a fundamental concept of Chassidus and Kabbalah. So it started off by saying that, again, I told you from the, let's say from the 28th of Nisan, 1991, until the 28th of Adar in 1992, it was exactly 11 months. And these 11 months, the Rebbe spoke constantly about Mashiach, and also spoke not just about the subject, but how we're now living in the times, and brought out many different things about where we're holding, like an update. So one of the things that Rebbe said was these words: the avodah of elevating the sparks has been completed. So we want to explain what that means, and also there are questions. Try to answer those questions. Generally, what it means is, according to Kabbalah, and this is something which is we study this a lot in Chassidus. Everything that we are doing throughout Golus, all the Torah, all the mitzvahs, everything that's happening is all about this subject, elevating the sparks. What does that mean? It means that everything in the world has a spark of godliness in it. So we're looking at a desk, which is an ordinary piece of furniture, but just like a person has a neshama, has a soul, so in a certain sense, this desk also has a spark of godliness, and that spark of godliness is what sustains this desk. It's not something which has something that has any holiness to it. It's just a spark of godliness that is invested in a desk. And the same is with everything else, trees and animals and any detail in the four categories of the inanimate and the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom and the human kingdom, everything physical has in it a spark of godliness. Oceans and lakes and mountains have in it sparks of godliness. What's our job? Our job is that when we use something in the proper way, we elevate that spark. And what does elevate mean? It means we reconnect it to its source, which is Hashem. Now, it doesn't mean that the spark leaves the object. No, the object is here, whatever it may be. The spark is there, but its status changes. Up until, let's say, if I take an apple and I make a bracha before I eat the apple, and I make a bracha after I eat the apple, it's not that I'm taking the spark away and it leaves that apple. It means that by doing that, this spark rises to a higher spiritual state because I made the bracha on it. It becomes, before this, it wasn't so connected to Hashem. In fact, that's one of the reasons why we call it a spark. The spark is really part of the fire. But the difference between the flame and the flame is the fire. Every part of the flame is part of the fire. The spark is something which is separate from the fire. Same thing here. When we say there's a spark, it means there's something in this desk or in this animal or in this tree or in the lake or in the ocean, in the water, that is it's from Hashem, but openly it's disconnected. It's like a spark disconnected from the fire. And by us using it in the proper way, we're reconnected. And basically, according to Kabbalah, once all those sparks are elevated, it means they're all reconnected to their source in the whole universe. Ultimately, that's when Mashiach comes. That's the general idea. Now, the first question one could ask is, wait a second, it's impossible. You can't elevate every single drop of water in the Atlantic Ocean. There are places in the world that nobody ever stepped there to make a bracha or daven. I understand that if I'm in this room and I daven, I'm elevating the sparks in the room because I'm using the room for davening. If I take my pen and I'm writing Torah, I'm elevating the spark in the pen. And being that I'm learning Torah on this desk, I'm elevating the spark on the desk. But there are places in the world that no mitzvah was ever performed there. And there are sparks there. So how could we say that those sparks should ever get elevated? I mean, Jews definitely lived all over, so we're in different countries, but that was hundreds of years ago, and now we're here, and certain places in the world where no Jew live there, and there's no mitzvahs being performed there. So then, and then even if we would be everywhere, there's still places in the world where people don't go there. Certain mountains, valleys, jungles there. How could that happen? So the answer to that question is that even though we don't go there, but everything's interconnected. And by us elevating the sparks in the places where we could go, that has an effect on places, other places that we can't reach. Interesting, I just recently came across something, and really it's related to something we learned in Pirkei Avos. Remember we learned in Pirkei Avos just recently that why did Hashem create Adam Arishan as one single person? Everything in the world was created in large quantities. When Hashem created trees, he created thousands of trees. When he created stars, he created thousands of stars. When he created animals, he created thousands of animals. The whole world was created in multiple numbers. The only single exception was the human race. Hashem created Adam Arishan as one single. He also could have created hundreds of people, thousands of people. And not only that he created one person, even though his intention was that the world would begin with a husband and a wife, Adam and Chava, he made a point to first create only Adam. And an hour later, he created Chava, or maybe less than an hour later, but the same day. If he intended that the first day of creation there should be a male and a female, why didn't he create both of them right away? What was the point that he created human race, one single person? And the Gemara answers to teach us, just like then, whatever Adam Arishan did, he was the only person that was in existence. So whatever he did affected the whole world because he was the whole world, right? So even now, when there are millions of people or billions of people, whatever we do is also, it's like as if this was the whole world. So there's an interesting thing that happened many years ago. At that time, it was very, very, I guess it was very unusual. But there were two Chabad rabbis who were being interviewed on a very popular talk show here in New York. And he was asking questions about Judaism, and they were answering. And one of the questions he asked was, why does the Torah punish a person for, let's say, violating Shabbos or something else? You know, I'm doing something in my own private life. If I do something like murder or stealing, this affects other people. But I'm doing something in my own private life. I'm eating something not kosher. I'm not keeping Shabbos or whatever. Why should I be punished? This is me in my own private life. And how could the Torah sort of tell me what to do in my own private life? And especially he was talking about the punishment that the person in the Torah, there's something called malchus, which is gets flogged. It's a punishment. It's a painful thing. Why would the Torah do that to a person? How do they have the right to force a person? So the answer they gave was that it really is very unusual that a person would deserve that kind of punishment. So later there was a Farbrengen, and the Rebbe said that I heard about this interview, and I heard about the question, I heard about the answer, and the Rebbe gave a different answer. What was the Rebbe's answer? That the question is really not a question. What was the question? Why should I be punished if I affect? I'm just doing it to myself. The Rebbe said everything that a Yid does affects the entire world. If you understand that, you'll look at things in a very different way. So this is like the famous expression, we're all in the same boat. It means if you're on a boat and there are 500 people on the boat and everyone has their private room, and I'm in my private room with a drill, drilling a hole in the bottom of the boat, which is in my room. And someone said, are you out of your mind? What are you doing? And he says, don't tell me what to do. This is my room. And the answer is, it's your room, but we're all on the same boat. We don't see it, but spiritually, the Rebbe is saying, when a Yid doesn't eat kosher, or Yid violates Shabbos, or Yid violates something else in Torah, The whole world is interconnected, and whatever one person does have an effect on the entire world. So he is affecting. If we do something positive, we bring bracha to the whole world. And if we do something, God forbid, negative, it does the opposite to the whole world. So basically, this is the same thing here with the sparks. That if I take a glass of water and I make a bracha, shahakal niyah on the water, even though it's just a glass of water, but again, I don't understand the network. It's a spiritual network, but it would mean that by me making a bracha, by you making a bracha, and other Yidden making brachas all around the world, ultimately, this has an effect on the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean and the this ocean and that lake and that river. All the waters in the world are affected, even though I was never there and I didn't travel to that spot. But because everything is connected, therefore I make a bracha on this water here, it affects water all over the world. And Hashem knows how things work, we don't. And the same is with other mitzvahs that we do. So it's based on the fact that whatever we do affects the whole world. The Rabbi gave a similar example, even a little bit closer. We know that one of the things that the Rabbi introduced in 1967 during the Six-Day War was to go out on a campaign. That was the first of the mitzvah campaigns. Go out on a campaign that the soldiers should put on tefillin, because the Gemara says that tefillin is one of those mitzvahs that brings long life. Every mitzvah has a specific blessing that it brings. All mitzvahs bring all blessings, but specific mitzvahs bring specific blessings. Like the mezuzah protects the home. Family purity affects shalom bayis. Kashrus affects the health. Different mitzvahs help for different things. Tefillin brings a blessing of long life. Then the Rebbe said that not only the soldiers, but every Yid that puts on tefillin in Israel or any other place will also help. And of course, the question was asked, how could it help? A Yid in New York is putting on a pair of tefillin. How's it going to help a soldier that's fighting in Israel? And the answer was, the Rebbe gave it the analogy of the human body, that if a person comes to a doctor and he says, there's something in my leg, there's an infection there, and they realize that he needs antibiotic, and the doctor will inject an antibiotic injection in his arm. Imagine him saying, excuse me, what are you doing in my arm? It's my leg that hurts. The infection is in the leg. And the answer is, doesn't matter. You put in this antibiotic, goes into the bloodstream, and the whole body is connected because the blood flows everywhere. So it helps every other part of the body. The Rebbe says all Yidden are one. And therefore, if I put on tefillin in New York, especially if I have in mind that this should be for the schus of a soldier, this will help that person who's there, that he should also have long life. So basically, this is called the avodah of elevating the sparks. And in Kabbalah, we understand that once this is all finished, all the sparks in the world are re-elevated. Now the world becomes ready, and the world is prepared for this new era of Mashiach. So what the Rebbe said, that particular Shabbos, it was in the year 1991 actually, but it was Shabbos Parshat Vayishlach. They said we reached the point now that all these sparks have been elevated. And therefore we're ready for Mashiach. The only question is, why ready? Why doesn't, so it should be Mashiach already. If all the sparks are finished, what else is there to do? So that's the part that I made an attempt to explain. And let me start again. In this section 13, each page has a number. Let's go to number 5. And let's first cover some vocabulary.
Sorry, when did you Rabbi start?
It was in 1991. It was a Shabbos Parshas Vayishlach, specifically. The reason why I'm mentioning that Parsha, because I'll soon show you, that's considered one of the Parshas that talks about the whole idea of elevating the sparks in Kabbalah. Not in the Chumash, but it's in the Chumash, but according to Kabbalah interpretation.
So why we need to keep the mitzvah?
So number one, why are we still doing mitzvahs?
And what is the effect of bringing out the rules?
And why is the Mashiach here already? What?
And what is the effect of the mitzvah keeping the sparks are elevated?
Right. So let's say that part we can answer, and the answer to that part is like this. Everyone agrees even without the statement of the Rabbi, just in general, that when Mashiach comes, the sparks will be elevated. But we all know that even Mashiach comes, we'll still be putting on film and eating matzah and keeping mitzvahs. So the answer is the Arizal writes that right now, yes, we're elevating the sparks, which means we're correcting something which needed correction. Once Mashiach comes, we won't any longer be elevating the sparks, but what we'll be doing is through the same act of the same mitzvah, we'll be drawing down this light that is going to shine in the times of Mashiach. We'll be drawing down a higher light. It's like the difference between a person who's not well, that first you need to do everything that needs to be done for his rehabilitation. And now once the person is healthy again and he can walk and he can talk and he can go to work and do everything he needs to do, now he can go out there and grow his business, grow his life, grow physically, spiritually, whatever he needs to do. It's now it's no longer about repairing a damage, but now it's about going from good to better. And that's the same thing with elevating the sparks. But I need to explain that. So let's go again to page 5. And let's see. And again, normally I wouldn't spend so much time because we want to cover many subjects on in Mashiach. But this is important because, and if I'm not wrong, I think Rabbi Pape should be pretty much in this neighborhood now with Tanya. Which chapter is Rabbi Pape doing now?
8.
Yes. No, he's not there yet. One more chapter. Okay. So I'll be ahead of him then. I'll explain this. When you get there, just say, oh, we know this already. Okay. Let's first do the vocabulary. Page number 5. So this is the term for in Chassidus, Olam Hatov. Remember we spoke about this last time. What it says is, there's a medrash that says that before Hashem created this world, there was other worlds. It wasn't the way Hashem wanted, and they were destroyed. So there's some people who believe in evolution, and they say, oh, now we know where the fossils are coming from. They were in the other worlds that Hashem created before this world. So that's why they could be 1 billion years old. They're from that previous world. The only problem is these worlds we're talking about, we're not a physical world, it's a spiritual world. In fact, this world was even higher than the world of Atzilus. We know that there are 4 worlds. The world we're in is Asiya. Higher than that is Yetzira. Higher than that is Bria. The highest of the 4 worlds is Atzilus. The world of Tohu is way higher than the world of Atzilus. It's a spiritual world that Hashem created. And in that world, there was something that happened, which is described as Shviras HaKelim, the breaking of the vessels. Yeah.
So like the only physical world that Hashem created is our world. Right?
Our world is the only physical world. All the other worlds are spiritual worlds, right? So what happened in that world is number 2. That's another word. This is again very, very common, and not only common. It's like fundamental. It's central to Kabbalah and Chassidus. Shviras HaKelim, which means breaking of the vessels. So first, let me just give you the language, and then we'll explain. When something breaks, it breaks into many pieces. Sometimes 20 pieces, a glass breaks, a plate breaks, going to 15 pieces. These vessels that broke into 288 pieces. But we're all talking about spiritual things. So break is not physically break, and pieces are not physical pieces. It means 288 sparks. That's what it says in Kabbalah.
I'm sorry, I missed it. Inside the Tohu world?
Yes.
The 202 sparks were
Right,
shattered.
right. So I want to first explain, I'm just trying to make it as simple as we can. So you can hold on to your seatbelts, and we're going to just make it as simple, down to earth as we can. What does it mean, the breaking of the vessels? So this is the part where we left off last 2 weeks ago, that everyone knows that in the world, the spiritual world, there are 10 spheres, right? 10 faculties, 10 spheres, which is like the 10 faculties in a person. There's Chokhmah, there's Bina, there's Das, the intellectual, the emotional, and so on. However, each one of these 10 consists of 2 parts. One is called Or, and one is called Keli. I'll write it down on the board. in simple words, one is the energy and one is the vessel. I need to explain what that means. Add more sense. Yeah. Add more sense. Yes. So this is the word in Hebrew. It's or, aleph, lo, resh, or, which means light or energy. Let me see if we have somebody who's a little bit more cooperative over here. And the second word is keli. Oh, chaf, lamed, yud, keli. Keli means vessel.
Wait, sorry, Rabbi Majeski, the Shmiras Hakelim happened when this world was being destroyed? Like when this world
Hashem created the world.
Yes.
And after the world was created, that's when this happened, Shmiras Hakelim.
Okay.
But it's not that something happened, oh, Hashem didn't realize, he baked the cake and it didn't come out. It's part of the plan. It should be a world and there should be Shmiras Hakelim. It's all part of the plan. But we won't go into all that, that's gonna make it too complicated right now. And now let me explain the concept of Or and Keli. What do you mean there's a light and there's a vessel? So we gave an example. We have 10 faculties. The faculties are the intellect and the emotion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Each one of the 10 faculties and each one of the different faculties or powers in a person also has an organ in the body that accommodates it. For example, intellect. Intellect is in the brain. Not only it's in the brain, but if you know just basic science, we know that different parts of intellectual functions are connected to different parts of the brain itself. In the brain, memory or other parts of each part of the brain accommodates a different kind of a power. The same thing with vision. We have the power to see. But the power to see, according to Hasidus, really comes from the soul. What's the physical eye? The physical eye is just like an instrument or a tool through which the power of vision is transmitted. Which means just like if I would be an artist and I'm a very, very talented artist and I can make a beautiful picture, but if I have no brush, I can't create anything. So when I do use my brush and create a picture, what I'm basically doing is the brush is a tool through which my art, my skill can manifest itself. So the same thing with the organs in the body, that the physical eye allows the power of vision to manifest. The physical ears allow the power of hearing to manifest. The mouth is the organ that allows the power of speech to manifest. The heart is for the emotions. So if you think of it in the human sort of infrastructure, there's also two parts. There's the energy itself, the pure energy, and then that energy is expressed through a different organ in the body, which is physical. The brain is a physical organ, and the heart is a physical organ, the eyes, and so on and so forth. And every organ is designed in such a way that this would sort of accommodate this particular part of the soul. So this is called and Keli, the light and the vessel, energy and the vessel, which is like the tool through which this energy is able to express itself. Yeah.
I have a question about the toe. I thought it's like in this world there was a toe. I thought that Hashem created this world and things out this world there was a toe and then he took it out.
No, the Torah was created before even Atzilus, but the light, whenever that which happened in Olam HaTorah, those sparks, they eventually descended, and that became what gives life to everything in the physical world. But this is not the place where it all happened. It happened sort of in a different place. It happened in the world of Torah, but from there, it came down to here.
Is it good though?
What?
Is it good or it's just like
So the world of Torah itself is actually a very high world. In fact, that's what led to the fact that there was Shvat HaKelim. But when we say it fell, it doesn't mean physically fall. It means its level became lower and lower and lower, and eventually it became the source of things that are physical and things that are sitra achra or whatever get life from these mitzutzos.
So it's even before Gura and all, like before that.
Before the 10 spheres. There were, in that world, there were spheres. But those spheres actually were very strong and very high, but it was so strong that it led to spheres Akeli.
And those shadows came here.
Yes. Yeah.
So is the spiritual world, right?
What?
So
Tohu, yeah.
So I should before do toe and after that do Atzilus?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. After that came Atzilus.
So in the toe world, there was the 10 spheres, and they have these two parts, Keli.
Or in Keli.
And the or was held by the Keli.
Right. Sometimes we'll also compare it to like I just gave the example of a body and a soul.
Mhm.
What's the Kelly in the toe?
In each sphere, there's also a Keli. Each sphere consists of Or and Keli. Just like with us, each of the energies has the energy itself, the pure energy, and then it has an organ in the body, which is physical, through which it goes. Let me give you another example, maybe not to make it so physical, like thinking of a vessel, pots and pans in the kitchen. Let me use a different term. When a person speaks, if I speak to another person and ask a question or give an answer, give an explanation, or a person speaks and expresses emotion, a person expresses love, expresses fear, expresses anger. When I speak, there's also an or and a keli. What would you say is the or, and what would you say is the keli? What would be the energy? What would be the vessel?
The words, the speech, and the vessel is the other person.
Is the what?
The other person, not the mouth.
That's interesting. That's probably also true. But no, I want to say in my own speech, in my speaking, there's a light and there's a vessel. There's an energy and there's a vessel.
Oh, so the power to speak is the or, and the keli is the mouth, like the faculty.
So I'm not talking about the mouth part now. I'm talking about even in the
mind, the thought.
no, I'm talking about when I speak verbally. True, I speak verbally, but what's coming out of my mouth, the words which are what?
The sound?
Not the sound. The thought that I'm giving over. I'm transmitting. I'm communicating a thought. When I communicate that thought, the or of the keli is like this. The thought itself is the or. The words that I'm using to communicate is a vessel. For example, what I just said, or I just explained, I could say it in English, I could say it in Hebrew, I could say it in another language, which means I'll change the language, but that's not changing the thought. The thought is the real thing. So what is the language? Languages are vehicles of communication. That's how I can't transmit it to you without words. So if I have a thought, I'm not going to speak words. All I can say is, you won't know what I'm talking about. So I have to say something. Some people speak English, some people speak Spanish, some people speak Russian, some people speak French. But the thought could be exactly the same thought. So that means that the words relatively are technical compared to the thought or the emotion. A person can express anger or love in any language, but the language is not it. The language are just the words. That's why we call it a vessel. It's just, I'll get to you in a second. It's just something that's allowing for me to communicate what I feel or what I think. And that's why we call it a vessel. And what's the real energy is the thought or the emotion. Yes?
And in which of the 4 levels of Tzimtzum is it's Bria or what? It was.
Which one did you say, Bria?
No, I'm asking, like we said that there are 4 levels of Tzimtzum. Which one is Tohu?
Tohu is higher than all 4.
Oh, so it's not.
It's above the all 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would Tohu still exist?
Let's not get too complicated. Let's try first get the idea first. Yes.
But why Hashem decided to make it forward? Why Hashem didn't want to just have all many forces there, like leave it in the toe? Why not to shatter it in the?
Oh, so I'm going to answer that question. Yes.
Oh, so when we say that Hashem contracted himself, then from Tohu, he contracted himself in the or? Or he didn't yet?
No, let me explain. Let me explain what happened in Tohu. What happened in Tohu, based now that you got the idea that it's like the light in the vessels. Again, we're not talking about people, not people. This is something spiritual. But nevertheless, there's an or, there's an energy, and it's in a vessel. So in a sense, when we use the word vessel, of course, it doesn't mean pots and pans. It means something that contains the energy. Like the advantage of being able to speak or find the right words, that helps me communicate what I want to communicate. I need words in general. Then you have the right word. Did it ever happen that you want to say something and someone says a word and no, that's too strong. I don't want to say that. I say another word, no, that's too weak. Yeah. And you say a third, oh, that's what I want to say. So you have an idea, then you have the right word that fits, and through that word you can explain it. So in a sense, the same thing is with the human body. The soul and the body, and whatever I experience in my soul internally and the body, they have to be the right balance. They have to be in harmony. What happens if, God forbid, a person gets news, information that is extremely, extremely overwhelming, shocking, overwhelming news in the negative, and it could also be shocking, overwhelming news in the positive. What could happen to the person if it's absolutely more than they can handle? Right, the body breaks. Something happens in the body. Chas v'sholom. That it says in the story with Sarah and Yitzchak, if you remember, with the Akedah, that when Sarah heard that Yitzchak was being brought as a sacrifice, that's when she died. So some say she died because shock of the negative, and some say the opposite, the shock that her husband and her son performed such a great, great deed. But in Gashmias, even in the physical world, we know that if a person, there's some shocking news, you have to give it to them gradually. You have to make sure that they're not overwhelmed because it could damage their health. It could have an effect on the heart, it can have an effect on the brain. So if the light is out of proportion, bigger and stronger and more intense than the vessel can handle, the vessel breaks. So in a sense, this is what happened in the world of Tohu. Let me for 1 second back off. There's a story in the Chumash about the two sons of Aaron. I know we didn't learn that parsha yet, but maybe you heard about it. That it says when they built the Mishkan, they on that first day, it was supposed to be a celebration, and they died. It interfered with the whole celebration. Why did they die? So the way it's explained in Orach Chaim and Chassidus and Kabbalah is that when Hashem came down to the Mishkan, this was the first time in history that God's presence came down to earth on such a level. They were so overwhelmed with love and feeling for Hashem that their bodies couldn't handle it, and they passed away. And there's more stories of great tzaddikim that they experienced that, and that's how they passed away. So basically, if the light and the energy is more than the vessel can handle, it'll break. And that's what happened in the world of Torah. The light is a very powerful light, very intense, and the vessels broke. So just like the Gashmis, if God forbid that would happen to a person, what happens is the neshama, the soul, goes back to its source, and the body, unfortunately, falls down and is no longer functioning. Spiritually, it means that the light in that world went back to its source, which is even higher, wherever it came from, and the vessels fell means that they became lower and lower and lower, and eventually the energy in the vessels is also not physical, it's a spiritual energy. It descended and descended, and eventually it became the source of all the Gashmizic things in this physical world. So it means that the spark in this desk, on one hand, is very low, and that's why it became the spark that gives life to a physical object. On the other hand, the source of this spark is very high. It comes from a place that is even higher than the world of Atzilus. And in fact, the reason why it broke and fell is because that world was too high and too much for it to be contained.
So it's the light of the 10 spheres.
Right.
And it went up, where did it go up?
What?
Where did the light go up?
The light went to even a higher place, which is its original source, even higher in the infinite, in Ein Sof.
Mhm.
So what Hashem was trying to do is contract his light into something that can handle it.
Right. So then a new world was created, which is Atzilus, and in this world, the light was now in proportion and in harmony with the vessels. Now we don't have enough time, so I'm going to say this quick, so you should be able to fall asleep tonight, and then next week we'll talk about it more. So ultimately, let's say I'm going to make a very, physical picture here, but it's the only way to describe it. So let's say this is the vessel. This is the vessel. And this vessel broke. And the light that was in the vessel, because the vessel broke, it went back out to its source, wherever it is. This light, which is like an infinite light. Now, after all the thousands of years and all the mitzvahs and all the Torah, which supposedly it's like taking all the pieces and putting them back together again. We have the vessel again. Now, after all this work, this vessel is much stronger than what it used to be. And that light, which was here and went back, now it comes back down here. And this infinite light is the reason why we will see all the changes in the world when Mashiach comes, because it'll be the light of Torah shining in this physical world. Yeah.
So this world is made out of kalim, right? Not ore.
It's the kalim of Torah, not the or.
Yes.
When Mashiach comes, we'll have the or of the world of Torah.
Oh, because it's this kind of thing.
It comes back.
So
Again,
Torah still exists?
yes. Okay. To give an analogy again of the physical body, again, according to Torah, the power of vision does not come from the physical eye itself, it's from the soul. So, chas v'shalom, there's an obstruction in the eye. As a result of that, the person can't see. Then the person goes to a doctor, does surgery, corrects whatever damage was, and now he could see. So there's a question here. Once the eye was damaged, that means the power of vision can no longer be there. Where does it go? It goes back into the soul, into its source. The doctor corrects and fixes the physical eye, but how do we get that? How does it get to see again? That's from the soul, and that left. It's like, imagine you have a cup full of water, someone breaks the cup and all the water leaks out, and now I go out fix the cup. So what? Now I have to do something else to bring the water in. The doctor doesn't do that. So we see from this that once the vessel in the physical body is corrected, the damage is corrected, then the light, the power of the soul goes right back. It's almost like a magnet. It goes back into, and the person can see and speak whatever damage might have been done. And the same thing here spiritually. Once we fix the spiritual vessel, then the light of Tohu goes back into it. But this time the vessel can contain it because it's been repaired. And that is what we have once Mashiach comes. So it's a certain light which we never had in this world. The light of Torah was never shining in this world. But once Mashiach comes, it'll be shining. So I just want to say one word before we finish, is that all the years of Gullus, we were busy fixing the vessel. Once the vessel is fixed, everything is fine. What are we doing now? This is a much less of a job and less time, and this is something which will bring Mashiach very soon. But now we're more involved in drawing down that light of Torah back into the vessel. And that should shine in this world, and that's going to be what Mashiach comes. I know we're left with a lot of questions, so hopefully when we have Mashiach and Wula next week on Wednesday, we'll finish with those questions.
So when we say elevating sparks, does that also mean repairing the vessels, or is that a completely different?
Yes, that repairs the vessels. When you elevate the sparks, it means now these sparks which fell, where do they come from? They're from the vessel. So we're elevating that means it's as if you're taking a broken vessel and putting all the parts back, and they become one like it was initially.
So we got the vessel.
Right. That's what means we corrected, we fixed, we finished reconstructing the vessel.
But the war hasn't come.
And now, whatever we're doing now is more about bringing that light of Torah into the vessel. It's Hashem's infinite light, yeah. Or Ein Sof. Okay, good to Shabbos, everybody. Shabbos Mevorchim. Try to say as much Tzolim as you can.
Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos, Rabbi Majeski. Thank you. Good Shabbos.